Okay, welcome to Into the Channel podcast, primarily about women's football. Before we hit the pitch, if you enjoy the show or love women's football, NWSL, Champions League, AFCON, Liga MX, doesn't matter. We're here for all of it. If you love the game as much as your boys do, kick it with us. Subscribe, follow YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen, at ITC_pod on X. I am your host, Dino De Cespedes, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Grant Engel. What is up, man?
I feel alive, buddy. Even if one of the scores didn't reflect it, that was some action-packed, exciting Champions League football there. Oh, there it is.
Nice sound. I think I might just join you. It's Champions
We're
League.
doing that today? Yes.
Yeah, we're doing that today. It's been a week.
Hell yeah.
Cheers to Champions League.
Cheers to that.
All right, buddy. We made it. Champions League quarterfinals, and we get to break it all down with each and every one of you. Props to our mighty Into the Channel community. YouTube was blowing up. Twitter was blowing up. X was blowing up. Doesn't matter what it's called. If Into the Channel's name was on it, it was blowing up yesterday. And a special shout out to our friends in Bergen who, I don't know, man, they really made it feel like we were in the building yesterday. That was so awesome. 2 days of way too many exclamation points, way too much caps lock. My arms were flailing, my hands were sweating, heart rate elevated, my Fitbit thinks I'm exercising. The best of times, really. On to the football, though. I've got a funny feeling about this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Mr. Grant Engel, where do you want to get started?
No other place to get started other than beautiful Bergen, Norway.
Let's go.
So Barcelona 2, Brann 1. Fine. Great. We didn't win the match. I loved Brann's energy from the very start. We talked about this in the build-up to the match, about them playing bravely, about them trying to hold possession. And it felt like Martin Ho and everybody on the squad had those same discussions. It was life-affirming to watch the way they went out there and played. They were trying to play from the back line, which I know you and I have lamented that strategy sometimes for clubs that are like outgunned or could be maybe a little out-talented by their opponents. In the first 5 minutes, I loved the way Brann was doing it, and it was going pretty well. After about the 6th minute mark, things started to get a little squirrely there. It started to backfire. Justine Jelland, she had a pretty bad giveaway that led to a shot and a near handball. Speaking about arms flailing, I was like very concerned with that. I was like, no, not yet. And Barca just started to really ratchet up the pressure. And it was happening inside of Brann's 18-yard box, which was very concerning. At that point, early in the match, Caroline Graham-Hansen, she takes a short corner to Perejuelo. There is something about these Barcelona corners where the person who takes the corner and they start circling around after they take it. We've seen Perejuelo score off that when she is the corner taker.
Yep.
CGH takes it. She gives it to Perejuelo. She runs up. It's back to CGH, who plays a give and go with Patry. Mikkelsen is totally screened in goal. CGH scores. It's 1-0 Barcelona in the 9th minute. Felt like it could have been a disaster, but when Barcelona scored, there was one defender who had like a clear like physical reaction to it and kind of like pounded her knees, but everybody else looked pretty calm, and the fans just kept chanting and singing. And I was like, okay, we're gonna be okay. Everybody's steady. There might be a crack in the dam, but the dam is not broken yet. At least that's what I was telling myself, and to be honest, I wasn't 100% sure of it. So where was your head at when they scored?
I like kind of zooming into this moment. Well, first, I love Brann's energy, love the crowd, and I was encouraged early, obviously. Aurora Mikkelsen had a great full stretch save on a Mariana Caldente strike, and it looked like Brann was like kind of ready for that, Barcelona style. We shoot from where we want, when we want, brand of football. I feel like they were ready for that. On the CGH goal that you're talking about, there was actually 2 give and goes. It's the give and go to Perejuelo, then the give and goal to Patry after that. Also sneaky. Tremendous screen by Kira Walsh, not allowing Marit Lund to get to Graham-Hansen, and then the shot takes a gnarly deflection. So yeah, at that moment, maybe I'm telling myself maybe a lot of stuff had to go right for Barca to get on the board there, just saying. So I think my spirits are still high at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I liked Brann's response after the goal. They still weren't afraid to try to keep some possession. Gieland had a rip-on goal that I was like, okay, yeah, get back in it, because Justine has been a great young player throughout this tournament. Think about that goal versus Lyon she scored, where she looked super surprised. We'll talk more about something like that later. I thought like Gaupset had that opportunity kind of like early middle of the first half, where she kind of tried to hit a long range chip over Katakoi when she had came off her line a little bit. I just love that they were able to kind of like keep up that confidence. But we knew, you just know, Barcelona, they just tighten the vice and they try to keep up that pressure. I mean, I get the feeling you're going to want to talk about it a lot too. Aurora Mikkelsen, outstanding in this match. Just a wonderful performance by her.
Unbelievable.
She had that kick save in the 35th minute against CGH, and then she had that sprawling diving save to save the Patry header in like the 35th. But after the 35th, we got to get to it. We got to get to the sequence. 39th minute, and you're not going to be surprised that I'm starting with this. Raquel Engesvik gets the ball outside of Brann's defensive third and does the shit that she does. She held onto the ball. She did not panic. She had some fancy footwork. She was able to kind of get the step over, get into a little bit of space, and then she gets it closer to the halfway line, and she passes it forward to Gaupset. And now we're cooking. Senia flies.
Let's go.
She's flying down the left flank, and she gets to just outside the 18, and she plays just a wonderfully soft pass over to Jelland, who then hits a skipping cross across the box, and there she is, Cecilia Reddish-Kavame, who makes the perfect touch, the sliding touch from an acute angle, beats Katakoi, and we're level 1-1.
Love an acute angle.
Gotta love an acute angle. It was a moment of unbridled joy and maybe some surprise from the facial expressions of the players on the pitch. So 2 things. First, what were you thinking in this moment? And then please just take us all the way through halftime after this moment, because there were still many events to occur after that.
Aurora Mikkelsen. Mm-hmm. Let's rewind. I don't want to scoop past the game she had. Total for the entire match. I know we're talking about this goal, but I just have to mention this here. Barcelona sent 32 shots her way. 32. 3-2. 11 on target, resulting in 9 Mikkelsen saves. If we're keeping it a Benny, I took a second look at the old ITC record book, and it says Barcelona needed 2 deflections to get their 2 goals.
Mm-hmm.
Let that live in the ITC record book forever. Now, the goal from Cecile Reddish-Kavame, no relation to our guy Simon Kavame, by the way. Your boy even did a little reporting on that little factoid. I don't know. Does that one go into the pantheon of women's football goal sellies? I mean, I feel like it's knocking on the door. Time will tell, but I think absolutely an unforgettable moment, at least for me. And for the fans in the building, oh my God, tough to have a moment be more memorable than that one. Maximum stakes to equalize against Barcelona. Like, you really kind of have them on the ropes at that point. Barcelona did look like the better side, but I wasn't really flabbergasted when Brann tied it up at 1.
Yeah.
It wasn't the most surprising outcome. I think the game was sort of teetering that way. I think it was probably more surprising that Barcelona wasn't able to score more than 1 just from all of those good chances that we mentioned. But again, like you mentioned, Mikkelsen out of her mind in that first half and for most of the game.
Yeah, I mean, there was that little, maybe, and not a lot, because, obviously we're not in the business of taking anything away from Brann's effort here.
Mm-mm.
You got to have that little bit of luck. And that Paredes set piece where she just drills a CGH pass off the crossbar, like almost at the death of the half, that was another arms flailing moment for me where I was kind of doing the Reddish Kavame where I was like, no, but it was not a happy movement like Reddish Kavame was doing. So that was frightening. But when we got into the first half, 1-1, the first thing I just started jotting down in my notes, it was like, survive the first 15 minutes of this half is like, because you knew Barcelona was going to come out firing.
Yep.
That's absolutely what they did. They continued to threaten throughout those first 15 minutes. A CGH, she missed a couple chances wide that even the announcers were kind of mentioning, like, ooh, you're not going to get a lot of those. Like, that's good fortune. But also I felt like the defenders were really kind of trying to push the Barca players out as far wide as possible. I want to give a quick note on CGH. She was vociferously booed pretty much every time that she touched the ball. And Lucy Ward, who was on color commentary, she mentioned that CGH was asked about the prospect of being booed in her native country. CGH said something to the effect of, quote, the fans can do what they want, which
Damn right.
I'm not going to assign any meaning to CGH's comments that she didn't intend, but I do like that Brann fan chant of UEFA Mafia, we sing what we want, and CGH saying they can say what they want. I don't know. You know what? I'm not CGH's PR guy. I don't know what she meant. I don't have any inside knowledge into what she meant. I just thought that sounded like a bit of a coincidence.
Yeah, I'm no code breaker, but could be something there.
So with that digression out of the way, moments after that, play-by-play announcer Vicky Sparks, and let me just say, Vicky Sparks and Lucy Ward on the DAZN USA call,
Cooking.
fucking outstanding. Great job by both of them, I thought. But Vicky Sparks, she hit us with the announcer's curse, the announcer's jinx, and she says, Perejuelo's been awfully quiet in this half, in the beginning of this second half. And I was like, no, Vicky, like in the moment, I literally go like, no, why'd you do that to us? No. a couple minutes later, and this is even more prescient, maybe from your boys over here, you specifically. Perejuelo gets the ball with her back to the goal from a CGH pass, something you may recall mentioning to our guy Cam Pope.
The old podcaster's curse.
The old podcaster. And that's generally what we wanted. That's what we wanted. We wanted Perejuelo with her back to the goal. Didn't matter in that case. She's able to control it. She turns, blasts it with her left foot. As you pointed out, another little cheeky deflection on that from the defender. Barcelona's up 2-1. At that point, I knew it was gut check time for our side because you didn't want to let this thing get to 3-1. I got to tell you, I honest to God was not that scared of it. And I'm curious how you were feeling at that point.
Well, let's rewind back to the Cam Pope episode that you mentioned. My kind of prediction there was like, I think they keep it close within a goal, maybe 2, back to 1, which is kind of what we got. So very much in line with what my expectations were. But yeah, you called it, man. That one particularly hurt. I love Sama Perejuelo. She's a phenom, generational talent. I called her Mbappe during the World Cup. It's possible I still might have undersold it. Probably on track to get a statue somewhere before it's all said and done. And on top of all that, she pulled the move. Podcaster's curse. Exactly what I said defensively what you want her to be doing. She was like, okay, hold my estrella. What a turn and finish from Perejuelo. We also talked about, whether this Barca side would or could be vulnerable without a true go-to player that no matter what happens, no matter how big the moment, this player's coming through in the clutch. I think we could put that one to rest too. No disrespect to the legends, Carolina Graham Hansen and Aitana Bonmati, wonderful, tremendous players. But Barcelona's big bad, she wears number 7, and her name is Sama Perejuelo.
Yeah, there's no question about it, man. And I think it's just one of those things. You and I, we love a good sports cliche. I have shouted it on this podcast before. Good defense, better offense. I don't know.
Exactly.
That is what you want. You do want her playing with her back to the goal.
Yeah.
The tricky thing is that every so often she can still do that.
But with that said, ITC personal record book, I've got deflections 2, Brann 1, Barcelona 0.
Look at that. All right.
Still in it.
You know what? That's fair. And, to Brann's credit, man, their will, their confidence, carrying them to the end. Because, I'll say, I really did believe it in the moment. I was like, okay, they can survive another 20 minutes. Because I didn't expect, I like that the refs weren't giving a ton of stoppage time in this either. I was like, okay, they can go 20 minutes and not give up another goal. I felt okay about saying that. And just the battalion out there, man, the atmosphere at that arena.
So jealous.
It was incredible, man. I just cannot imagine being there. The crowd shots of the supporters behind the goal in the first half, jumping, all bouncing at the same time. They were loving it out there. And in the 76th minute, 5 minutes after Perejuelo scores a goal, which would feel like a backbreaker to most people, Vicky Sparks and Lucy Ward were just kind of chuckling at how loud the supporters still were after a goal that felt like it should have been crippling. I want to get to just a couple more notes. I know you got thoughts and feels on this as well. So I want to shout out Caroline Holland, who played extremely tough. She made some crucial tackles out there, scared me a bit at times because some of those crucial tackles that she made, some of those interventions she made, she had to get exactly right to avoid a card or even worse disaster. And she did it. Friend of the show. Pardon me if I butcher the last name here, Alexander, but Alexander Scree, it looks like, Alex Scree on Twitter, referred to Holland as, quote, the Terminator. And I plan, at least speaking of the ITC record book, I plan on us adopting that moving forward because Holland played tough as hell against some of the best attacking players in the world.
Total cosign. I think I saw something circulating Twitter too that Holland notched the second most kilometers covered.
That tracks.
Over the entire quarterfinals round. So 8 teams and She's second.
For sure. Speaking of kilometers covered, I thought another part that was emblematic of just the match as a whole was when Senia Gaupset was subbed off in the 86th minute. She is like coming off the field, and you could see Martin Ho laughing, and he was just like pure joy on his face. And I want to amend something, and I've mentioned this on the program before, is that I get annoyed at these like super late subs, and I'm like, what are we doing here? I'm starting to get it now. I understand, because Gaupset was cooked. She gave everything that a human being could possibly give in that match. And she needed to be taken off the field. And it's no discredit to her. It's a credit to her that she gave 86 minutes at the intensity level that she did.
Oh, yeah.
To see Martin Ho react like that, like just this joyous, like you gave every ounce that you possibly could, that felt emblematic of just like even the way the supporters were behaving out there.
Yeah, I mean, she's sort of like a, like a leader in the department of energy and effort, and I think like there are different types of leaders on a football field, like some more tacticians, some are more like, I'm going to step up in big moments. We've talked about lots of players on other teams, but Senia Gaupset, you can always just look at her and be like, wow, she's setting the tone from an energy standpoint, from an effort standpoint, from a physicality standpoint. And then when you have a crowd like that, they're absolutely going to feed off that. And then it just becomes like self-reinforcing, like two directions. Now everybody's feeding off each other. And that place was an absolute snake pit, and I think I've sort of lamented before the notion of players being unlucky or lucky. But, when a golfer misses a shot, it's not unlucky. When a batter misses a fastball, it's not unlucky. It's just they didn't connect in that moment under those circumstances. And sometimes you might be a little tired. Sometimes you might be a little distracted. Something might be in your head. And all of that was at play. And that's how you turn 32 shots into 11 that are on target. Not the most accurate day for Barcelona. And then you get the Mikkelsen game. She saves 9 of those. And then again, we've kind of joked about it, but it does mean something. Credit to Barcelona. They scored, but they had to earn it. 90 plus minutes. And Brann had some late chances as well. So it could have very easily gone back 1-1 or 2-2.
Totally agree. And I think we got to do it one more time just for posterity. Aurora Mikkelsen, you mentioned it, like that's the Mikkelsen game right there. There's zero chance the match plays out that way without her incredible athleticism, her perfect positioning. I just think that even when they had those 9 shots on target, some of them were good looks. That Patry header in the first half where she has to dive to her left and, strong wrist, left-handed out of there, it's a different match if they go up 2-0. How many times have we seen Barcelona start burying teams when they start to pour in the goals in the first half? So that's a Mikkelsen game. And she even had, in stoppage time in the second half, Bonmati hit an absolute rocket that could have been one of those crushing dismounts to the match that would have had it end 3-1 going back to Barcelona. But she makes another wondrous effort, gets her hand up, punches it over the crossbar. And now we're looking at 2-1 heading into Barcelona, and it is largely because of Aurora Mikkelsen.
Absolutely right, my good man. But now we're at a place where just a goal separates these two sides. Barcelona's definitely been put on notice, dispatching this Brann side. It's going to take another 90-plus minutes of all-out football at the very least. These two teams lock up again Thursday, March 28th, 1:45 p.m. Eastern. Okay, let's go ahead. Ajax 0, Chelsea 3. This was a tough watch for your boy. You know how we feel about this Ajax side. And I don't think any of us are quite ready to just give up at this point. The stats in this one tell an interesting story, maybe 2 interesting stories. Chelsea, slight edge in possession, 53-47. Pass accuracy about even. Chelsea 81 to Ajax's 80. Passes completed, also fairly close. Take a closer look, though, and there are a few key stats that tell a more accurate story. Chelsea dominated in all 4 of these departments. Aerials won, 19-9. Crosses, more on that later, 19-6. Shots, 13-8. Shots on target, Chelsea wins that one too, 6-2. This was probably the most big sister, little sister matchup on the slate this past week. And while Ajax was good, Chelsea was better and a lot better where and when it mattered most. What plays stuck out to you early in this one?
I mean, in the first 7 minutes, Luchter has Hannah Hampton completely beaten. She has her dead to rights, and the shot hits the right post in the 7th minute. And we talk about it, sliding doors moments, whatever cliches we want to use. If that goes in, I think we're looking at a completely different match.
I mean, absolutely. Like, I think every other quarterfinals match ended 2-1. I think if Luchter buries that one, this is probably more of a 2-1 type match.
Yep.
And since the goals are aggregated, that goal carries value into next week. So would have been valuable either way. I think there were 4 key moments that progressively took more and more air out of Ajax's sails. First, we didn't mention this on the show, found out a little bit later, no Sharita Spitza, which was going to be an issue. We talked on last week's show. We talked on last week's show about Kaylee DeSanders and needing to get a good DeSanders game. We love you, Kaylee, but that did not happen. The second, that Luke chance that you mentioned that thunders off the post. The third moment, Lily Johannes' bummer of a yellow card at the 14th minute. Lily will now miss the second leg at Stamford Bridge. Absolutely devastating. We talked about that record-setting crowd, and that yellow sent a chill through the entire stadium. I think everybody knew what time it was at that point, and everybody's like, oh, just here we go. And the fourth and final, Lauren James, that quiet assassin, business as usual as some of the Ajax players, caught flag watching, but you called it. LJ was going to be a difference maker in this one. She seems like the only one who knew that she wasn't offside. Just kind of staying with it, tap, tap. And then VAR confirms 1-0 Chelsea. Really tough to overcome a start like that when just things start to slip progressively further and further away with each sort of bad break. Talked about sliding doors. That was 3 or 4 sliding doors in succession that just closed at the wrong time.
There's something to Lauren James's game, and we've talked about it a lot, how it doesn't look like she can outrun you, but somehow she's always ahead of you. It doesn't look like it's impossible to take the ball from her, but you can never take the ball from her. And in that moment, that smoothness, that calmness to her game, everybody on the pitch, her teammates thought she was offside. And, the announcer called it out too. Credit to her. They always say, play to the whistle, play to the whistle. Anybody who played youth sports growing up, you always hear that. She did exactly that. But even if everybody was playing, she still probably would have been as smooth with it to make that finish, just the way she kind of dekes the keeper, gets to the right, and just tucks it away. I just have a question. And I know this is going to sound weird because of the incident she had in the World Cup where she stomped on a player from Nigeria and had the red card. So I'm going to couch it a little bit of a different way. Is Lauren James the calmest athlete in the world while play is going on in their sport?
Well, who's calmer? Let's see. I mean, I don't know. I just nicknamed her the quiet assassin. So that seems fitting that, she just has that kind of game. I don't know. Tracy McGrady, just harking back to 1990s NBA basketball.
I was going to throw Kawhi Leonard at you.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, she's Kawhi.
And we've already compared her, as everybody knows, Dino and I love basketball. We've compared her game to James Harden as like this crafts person who just like does everything right and like everything is the right motion. She is this combination, for anybody who likes basketball, of James Harden and Kawhi Leonard, where it's the mind-bending skill of James Harden, but then she delivers in big moments like Kawhi Leonard.
I'm glad we're having the Lauren James conversation because the thought absolutely ran through my mind. I didn't kind of include it in where I wanted to take the show, but now here we are.
Sure.
I think she's in the conversation for best player in the world for me. I think she came in number 6, somewhere in that neighborhood in the Guardian's most recent list. Definitely like top 8 or 9. Wasn't lower than 9. I feel like it was 6. But for me, it's just like, I don't know. If you give me a pick of anybody, I'm not going too many picks before Lauren James comes off the board for me. I think she's absolutely in that best player in the world conversation. Unbelievable, still early 20s. And she had a moment a little bit later on Newskin's first goal, who was out of her mind also, by the way. LJ clearly in an offside position, but as the ball's approaching her, so slick, she runs back to still kind of pose a threat to the Ajax defense, knowing she can't touch it. Like, I think cognitively, she can't touch this ball. She was way offside. But she runs directly at the ball, kind of no looks, skips over it. And that's just enough to freeze a defender or two, which I think there was a couple that just kind of like took half a pause. I think Isa Cardinal was probably in there. Descenders, I think, was on the backside of that play. And it freezes you for just a split second. Girl right and gets on the end of it. Beautiful cross, smashed in. Newskin finishes. Now it's 2-0. And LJ is just manipulating the chessboard in a way that just doesn't seem fair. Like, she's just playing a different game. Like the regular game that everybody else is playing, she's already mastered it. She's playing a different game that just kind of puts her on an absolutely different level. That play was so smart, so high IQ that I'm just mesmerized watching. I'm just like, oh my God, and you know it was on purpose because she takes a direct line right at the ball.
I literally stood up in my living room and said, she wasn't in the play and she helped score the goal. In real time, with people, thousands of people standing around you screaming, she is the calm. I think she's the calmest athlete in the world while the ball's in play. I think she's even calmer than Kawhi, because that is, the presence of mind is just insane right there.
I'm going to throw Usain Bolt, calmest.
That's pretty good.
Might be on the level. Just cool as shit. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Last week, we talked about that Wrighton James Cannard combo, especially with regard to their ability to score and their ability to play make. And Shika Newskin was like, oh, word? Just turned 23 years old in her last 2 matches for the Blues, 4 goals, a 2-piece against Arsenal, a 2-piece against Ajax. So now, going against Chelsea, you have to game plan against these 4 players. Actually, throw Aaron Cuthbert in there. Now, these 5 players, you definitely have to have a game plan for, because on every single possession, all 5 are dangerous to hit the pass, bury the shot, hit the pass before the pass. I mean, it's just terrifying. I mean, those 5, so creative, so clinical. Having a game plan against them must be an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, and I mean, there are even more players to talk about. I know, like, the list goes on and on and on. They bring on Kat Macario later, and she's just, don't worry, buddy, she's just playing her way back into shape. Surely that won't be more dangerous for every opponent moving forward in the tournament, assuming they're able to finish the job in London. Yeah, man. I mean, I know you have some thoughts on this, and we're obviously in the quarterfinals of the tournament right now. Hard to not look at them and say, maybe the most dangerous team in the tournament?
I'm sorry, I should have gotten this person's name. Somebody commented either on Twitter or YouTube, kind of blanking on it, but you know who you are. Somebody mentioned that we made a big deal about the Chelsea injuries. Obviously, Sam Kerr, Millie Bright, Mia Fishel, the huge names that were injured. Somebody was making the case that the lineup that they ended up with was like the absolute optimal lineup, and I think, like, while they missed those players, there's something about the interplay between them that really, I don't know, there's just something about that set of players. Like, they kind of have every box checked.
Yeah.
I've kind of been of the opinion that this Chelsea side was like a smidge behind Lyon, who was maybe a couple smidges behind Barcelona. Mm-hmm. But now, like, you just look at this Chelsea attack, and then defensively, they were also really good.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's a defense left in the tournament that can hold this Chelsea team under 2 goals. And then last thing on the Blues, Emma Hayes nailed everything in this one. Lineups, subs, tactics, strategy. The longer the game wore on, the more this Chelsea side was able to separate from Ajax. The more they were able to, like, squeeze the life out of the game. And that's almost always a testament to really good coaching. Bringing on the likes of Kat Macario, who you mentioned, she gets the assist on Newskin's second goal. Ashley Lawrence, Yelena Jankovic, Sophie Ingle, Aggie Beaver-Jones, or ABJ as she's referred to here at the ITC. Having that stable of difference makers on your bench, that doesn't hurt one bit either. Props to Emma Hayes and this Chelsea squad for turning in, I don't know, in my mind, the performance of the week.
Sure felt like it, because Ajax is not a bullshit team. Like, they have great players on there, and they pretty much held them down, and they kind of broke their spirit, it felt like. And not to criticize the mentality of Ajax, but like you pointed out, with those sliding doors just continuously slamming closed, it's hard for anybody to get up from that. But it takes the opponent to kind of break that will and convert their chances. And I will also just say, combination of credit to Emma Hayes and Chelsea's social media team. On Instagram Reels, Chelsea Women's Football Club posts a video of Emma Hayes riding a bicycle in Amsterdam. I don't know if it's before or after. I saw the post after the victory with the song by Queen, Bicycle, playing over her riding a bike. So Emma Hayes, she likes to ride her bicycle. She likes to ride her bike. And she also likes to win matches.
That she did. These 2 teams are going to run it back Wednesday, March 27th, 4 p.m. Eastern. Let's zip over to Portugal for another certified banger. Talked about all these 2-1 matchups. This one went along those same lines. Benfica 1, Lyon 2.
I'm just going to get this out of the way. I think Benfica could have won this match.
Mm-hmm.
Similar to Brann, but in a larger venue, the crowd was amped for this one. Lisbon looked extremely lit, and I felt like the squad really mirrored that energy. The first major sign was Benfica winning a ball off Haran near the midfield. I think it was Andrea Faria. More about her later. She wins the ball off of Haran. It falls to Kika. Kika pushes it, as she does, immediately upfield into the danger area, passes it forward to Nicole Reisler, who has, just quick digression, has one of the greatest footballer tattoos you will ever see in
Come
your
on.
life, continuing a new generation tradition of Brazilian footballers with great tats. For anybody who doesn't know, Google Richarlison back tattoo and then just get back to us.
We love the audacious here at the ITC. Go ahead and also Google Nicole's as well. Let's go. I mean, she's trying to let all you know to keep that third eye open.
Absolutely. And she kept that third eye open. She engages Ellie Carpenter and Vanessa Gil before playing the ball right back to Andrea Falcone, who rips a shot near post. And it wasn't even like the classic, like I'm going to wind up and hit a huge rip, but she just has the perfect body positioning to punch it with the side of her foot. And she forced that save from Endler, who had to push it off the post in the 7th minute. And from right there, I was like, ooh, baby, we are cooking.
Kind of a bummer. We just talked to Ajax Chelsea. You know, we were so pumped for Champions League. The balloon pops, 35 minutes into the game or something like
Right.
this Benfica match, the vibes early, like it just brought me right back to like max. I'm like, all right, we're back up to 10. The heart's pumping. That Falcon chance early. I mean, that was a message sender. That was basically, we're not here to play. Like, we're here to fight, basically. And I think that was just incredible spirit. You know what? I am going to say that was a little unlucky. That one was unlucky. I picked my spots.
Yeah, sure. No, that's fair. There's place for luck in here. But, credit to Endler. Great save by her for sure. I felt like Benfica kept that energy up for like the first 16 minutes of the match. They held possession. The crowd was feeding off them holding possession. But then Lyon, and I feel like sometimes you don't say this about teams that are looked at as the favorite, but then Lyon really started to kind of grow into the game themselves, and like they were creating their chances, and they forced Lena Powells, who we should talk about in this match, Benfica's German goalkeeper. She made some good saves in the first half. She handled some of those early shots with relative ease, but then the thing happened. It was, I got to tell you, we're going to talk about it a few times. Vanessa Gil is a very good player, and we have talked about her in the lead up, in the build up of this Champions League. That was a howler by her. And considering what happened to her playing for Team Canada in the CONCACAF W Gold Cup, it's been a little bit of a rough go for her the past few weeks. She tries to play the ball back to her fellow center half, Mbak, and Andrea Faria runs onto the pass like the pass was a through ball for her.
Yeah.
She is completely clean through 1v1 versus the keeper. Credit to Gil, though, who does the right thing by realizing, and trust me, I mean, not that it's no solace to Vanessa. I know the feeling. I have also had to sprint back after a howler playing right defender, playing right back. She does everything she can to try to sprint back and to try to make up for it. It's too little too late. Faria, cool as you like, slots it home, past Endler. Lisbon is going crazy, 1-0 Benfica in the 43rd minute.
What a moment for Benfica. Not going to pile on Gio here. Tough spot for her. These things happen. Tremendous hustle and finish under pressure, like you mentioned, by Andrea Faria. With an opportunity like that, you win a 50-50 ball near midfield with like still half the pitch left to run. Like so often you see a heavy touch or somebody catch you from behind, or you just kind of like don't hit the perfect, ball upfield that you can run onto. Flawless from her. And just still so much work left to do. That must be a daunting feeling. It must feel like it takes 10 minutes to get from when you intercept the ball to the goal. But credit to Faria. Super cool finish from her. And like you said, pandemonium in Lisbon.
I mean, it was feeling good. It was one of those goals where, like, I think we have talked about it, where it's like the camera shake goal, where it just happens and everybody's going nuts.
We have to make a list. We have got looping header, camera shake goal. We're going to have to start keeping a list.
I like it. I like the penalty that hits side netting. That's always a good one.
I like that.
Yeah, I'm totally in. We can add it to, it'll be like the appendix of the ITC record book, I think.
Yeah.
Moments later, though, I mean, that happens in the 43rd. We're talking it felt like 30 seconds later. 25-year-old Canadian Chandra Davidson does everything right in chasing down the ball and winning it off Gil. And in that moment, I, honest to God, as I saw it happen, I look up and I saw the 21 on Gil's back, and I was like, "Oh my God, not again!" It was one of those times where, And, I feel like you and I do a good job of this, but I had like legitimate empathy for her where I was like, oh my, they're going to take her off the pitch in the second half because this is just a disaster.
Yeah.
But Davidson, but you got to give a lot of credit to Davidson because she read it perfectly, but she just rips it right off Gilles. She takes off down the field. And Kika is right in the middle of the 18 and nobody's there. And I'm not trying to blast Davidson on this. You have to pass the ball to Kika Nazareth. In most situations, you have to pass the ball to Kika Nazareth, but especially right there.
100%. Should have been 2 there. I feel like we got robbed of like just a backbreaker of a finish from Kika potentially. Could have easily gone 2-1 the other way. So often in these types of matchups, as the underdog, you have to get everything right. You have to take advantage of every opportunity. And then you have to capitalize or convert 1 or 2 of those half chances as well to kind of get past a team like Lyon. Kind of knew that this one wouldn't be forgotten when it was all said and done. To your point, super memorable play for sort of the wrong reasons. But, young team, I'm sure you played on teams before too, when you're beating the team that you're not supposed to be beating. And now you start loosening up a little bit, shoulders start to, kind of like shimmy, and the decision making starts to dip because you kind of feel like you're playing with house money. But against this Lyon side, there is no such thing as house money. No. It's Champions League. It's as high stakes as it gets.
You could make a case that Lyon is the house. And you know what they say about the house.
Never lost.
I will say, though, and I was trying to monitor the stats while I watched, I kept an eye on it. 55 minutes in, 10 minutes into the second half, I just wanted to do a quick glance at the possession stats. And Benfica had 52% possession. And I was like, all right, we're doing something. Like, this is real. This is happening here.
Yeah.
I want to point out this, like, in the 62nd minute, Lindsay Horan, she plays a perfect through ball to Diani, who's basically on with the keeper. And like we make these lists, we got to make this list too of the last person as a goalkeeper you want to see running at you with like a defender trying to chase him down from the side. And you're just like, oh Christ, I'm one-on-one with this person right now. Diani is near the top of that list of who you do not want to see in that situation. And Powell stood super strong, makes a brilliant kick save, just full confidence. The announcer even pointed out, great positioning, waited to the last minute to kind of go down to make the kick save. I thought that was great. But moments later, I just wrote in my notes, Ellie Carpenter is the fastest person in the world. Because she has, and I know she might not be, but you know what? In that moment, nobody was arguing with me.
Yeah.
She's so fucking fast. She throws the ball in, she gets it back, and then it feels like in 3/4 of a second, she's at the end line, delivering a perfect pass to Dumornay, who just in a moment of absolute brilliance is like, oh yeah, back heel right here. Just a quick little back heel flick. That's what I'm supposed to do. And there's Cascarino, tucks it home, 63rd minute. And I just got to say, I'm going to raise my hand on this. We've talked about Lyon a lot. We watched France closely in the World Cup. Cascarino is part of the ACL epidemic that's happening in this sport right now. Her tear was in late May of 2023. I got to point this out, because we haven't talked about her that much, but she had no fewer than 16 caps in every season for Lyon since 2017. And that is a span where Lyon won the league 5 out of 6 times. Wow. So she's a hell of a player that I didn't even really totally understand her gravity. But now that I watched her play, I was like, oh yeah. So they got another nuclear weapon over there.
Yeah, she's definitely shined for France internationally too. She looked really, really sharp. Wonderful to see her back. I thought Lindsay Horan, also who you mentioned, had a great game. Captain America, some tremendous balls into the channel.
Nice.
Lindsay almost got Lyon's second off a stellar Sam Abasha dime. Horan's also involved in another close call where she heads one back to Mbach that Vicky Beccio smashes home. Got called back, I think, for an offsides. And then finally, Lindsay Horan again officially gets the assist to Sarah Debritz for the goal that felt like it was coming one way or another.
Yeah.
Lena Powell's great showing. Camp Hope called her out too after the match against Barcelona, where she gives up 4 goals. He's like, Lena Powell's was like amazing. he was like losing his mind over her. She's really, really good. So shout out to her. But yeah, that second goal felt like it was coming. So just so much pressure. She ends up having saved 7 of Lyon's 9 shots on target. Still a great showing. And I think still some drama left as this one goes back to France. Because, I mean, I think of the second place squads. Obviously, Brann's up there. I think Benfica's right there with regard to a team that could actually be in the market for an upset in the second leg. Ultimately, though, I did feel like Lyon wore this Benfica team down. Rematch, like I said, real banger potential. I do not think in the slightest we've heard the last from this Benfica side.
All right, so I wanted to make sure I got this right because friend of the program, Vespa, on
Let's
Twitter,
go.
world's greatest Benfica fan, if you ask us. Add that to the ITC record book.
Cosign.
Vespa pointed out while we were kind of just chatting during halftime of the Brann match, he pointed out that it just felt like Lyon was at a superior level physically. And I think that is a really astute point, is that we talk a lot about Portugal and Portugal more broadly, but Benfica's journey in women's football as they continue to develop. I think the announcer even pointed out that this wasn't even a club until 2017 in the women's game. So to be where they are now is incredible, but it's hard to expect them to have the depth and just like the physicality of a club, a legacy club like Lyon. An amazing showing, still so much more room to grow in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about this way back in the group stage, mentioning that, Benfica was probably in the got to get in the weight room kind of stage of their development, where footballing wise, they've got skilled players and they've got a philosophy. But yeah, physically, you can definitely see a difference, especially as the game wore on. I'm just looking here at Lyon subs. I mean, second half, they bring on Melchi Dumornay, who you mentioned, Damaris Agarola, Vicky Beccio in for Diani. So, I mean, these are 3 sports cars that you've just got at your leisure.
For sure.
Those players are not on Benfica's bench. But yeah, shout out to Vespa. He's definitely our guy. And yeah, like I said, this one, a lot of meat on the bone when these teams meet again next week, Wednesday, March 27th, 1:45 p.m. Eastern. One more match to go. BK Häcken 1, Paris Saint-Germain 2. In what was mostly a nip and tuck, PSG finds a way to outscore this Häcken side in Gothenburg. PSG, probably the more talented side, but no Maria Antoinette Contoto in this one. Then PSG lose Jackie Hrunin at the end of the first half to injury. Shout out to Camp Hope for the pronunciation help, which even the scales out even more. What'd you see in the first half, Häcken PSG?
I thought PSG was attacking with great ferocity in the opening part of the match. I thought it was pretty obvious that Falk and the back line were going to have some work to do.
Mm-hmm.
I try to do some self-reflection like after we do these shows, and I was like, man, I talk about Karshawi a lot as a player. And I was like, am I focusing too much on her? Nope. She's just fucking awesome. Every match she plays, all the time, Karshawi is fucking great. She had a volley that was just as perfectly struck as you could hit it. Falk had to make an incredible fingertip save. It ricochets off the post. And Häcken, at that point, I was just like, you guys got to start fending off this attack, but you got to hold the ball a little bit. That was about like 20 minutes in. But not long after that, there's a corner kick for PSG. It was a very strong header from Chewinga, forced Falk to make another save. She did that, but there she is. If Lindsey Horan is Captain America, maybe Eva Gattino can be Deputy America. She's right there.
I like it.
In her first Champions League cap. Just scores a casual goal in the first leg of a quarterfinal. 1-0 PSG, 23 minutes in. And let me say, we've mentioned the ITC record book a couple times. I think this should be a thing. Chewinga had the header to force the save. The rebound from the save falls right to Gattino. Why can't Chewinga get an assist for that?
I tell you what, buddy, she can in the ITC record book.
Damn right.
Already noted, tap of the Chewinga, you're in the book. I also want to second real quick your Sakina Karshawi point. She was everywhere and like doing everything. Running, passing, free kicks, just that volley that you mentioned. My favorite part about her game is she's a big game player.
Yep.
I think like when it's kind of like I said, nip and tuck, like she's just like, give me the ball. Like it's not like, oh, I'm going to play my part here. She's like, no, I want the ball. I want to have an impact on this game. And I want this moment. And I think you could definitely feel it. She owned the first 20, 25 minutes of this match.
100%. Anytime you have a fullback and you can just kind of run the offense through that player, I mean, that's a special player, and especially when you can do it in a big spot. She played a huge role, like you're talking about her being everywhere. They continued to pretty much dominate possession. There was one point, I think it was like middle of the first half, maybe late of the first half, where you could hear, it sounded like the Häcken coaching staff screaming the instructions, higher, play higher, because they were trying to get them to press a little bit
Mm-hmm.
to try to win the ball a little earlier, just to get the ball out of their own danger area. But I also know, as all the Häcken players are really smart, obviously great pros, they were probably like, hey, yo, if we run higher and we miss, Sandy Baltimore and Tabitha Chewinga are going to score another fucking goal. So we don't want to do that.
Yeah. No, and I think game flips right around the 40-minute mark. Talk about smart play. Beautiful Rosa Kafaji ball over the top. Anna Anvegard slides just past PSG defender Taniba Samora. She does the Chris Paul, where she's like, I'm going to slow down. I'm going to let you butt me and draw a super savvy foul here right in the box. Penalty. Kafaji steps up to take. Really fitting, as she's the one who created the chance. Plus, she's just awesome. Her PK, saved by Ketersnick. Ball ricochets into open space. And, buddy, we now have a 50-50 situation between Rosa Kafaji and Elisa de Almeida. I'm not going to lie. I blacked out. I lost consciousness for half a second. I was just like, oh, my God, this is happening. Oh, my God. And then when I came to, Rosa obviously beats her to the ball, knocks it in. Beautiful header. Game on, 1-1, and we're in business.
I might be talking crazy. Like earlier in the tournament, it was during a group stage game, obviously, there was Kafaji had a penalty saved, if I remember this correctly. And then she came back the next match and scored. I feel like I remember us talking about this.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, in that split second, she processed when that penalty got saved. She was like, ain't no fucking way. I'm not getting this ball into the net. And she was going to fight anybody. And the fact that she had to fight De Almeida to get the ball in there just was I think a real tribute to her, really her heart and her guts, to use some sports cliches, to just be like, no, I'm blasting this ball in there. And she got there. It was incredible to watch.
There were two moments this week that felt like they took an hour. One, we mentioned the Fadia breakaway, where she just gets the ball near the halfway line, and it just feels like it's taking an hour for her to get from there to kind of put it away. Yep. This Kafaji putback, same kind of deal. Like, I'm just like, time absolutely in my household on my screen slowed down.
For sure. And, speaking of slowing down, it felt like, in terms of possession, after that Kafaji goal, after we get across the half, it was a lot more of the same. PSG had nearly 70% possession for what felt like the whole thing. Chewinga had a goal that was ruled offside. She was just a step too fast in the 54th minute. But to counteract that speed, I just want to point out, I think it was in the 62nd minute, according to my notes here, Casola had a foul on Karshawi in PSG's defensive third. And I'm pretty sure Casola stood over her for a second, like she had just had a sick dunk. And in those moments, after Kafaji rolled the ball out of play to slow down PSG on a free kick, I was just looking at it, I was like, oh yeah, we're going to get some shithousery here. Like, they're going to lean in to bully mode that we kind of talked about. Like, they knew it was cold outside. Around this point, too, you could kind of start to see the fog start to descend on the stadium. And I was just like, okay, Häcken is trying to do like some Undertaker type shit here. Like, here comes the fog. We're going to start playing dirty. Not dirty, but we're going to start kind of playing a little more physical. And it just felt like when Casola stood over her like that, I was like, all right, we're trying to get the intimidation factor up here.
It's interesting because, I mean, you couple that with your anecdote about the coach screaming like higher, higher. Mm-hmm. And this Häcken side, they just know who they are.
Yeah.
And they know how they want to play. They want to defend. They want to be disciplined. And then they want Kafaji to break, and they want Yusaba to break with her. And then they want to see what happens. And I think that's like kind of their recipe. And credit to them, not an ounce of panic after they give up that first goal. There wasn't an ounce of panic the whole 90 plus. They're just like, all right, well, business as usual. Here we go. We're halfway there, with still another 90 plus to go this week coming up in Paris.
Yeah, and that's how they played against Chelsea in the group stage. That's how they played against Real Madrid in the group stage. I think that's a great call out. They know who they are. They know how they want to play, and that's what they're gonna do. I will say Ruby Grant came on at the 72nd minute. She had a bit of a bad giveaway on a relatively promising attack for Häcken. That kind of felt like it hurt. And then almost immediately after that, on a cross from Amelie Vangsgaard, that looked like it was going in for Martins, it falls to Chewinga, and Ruby Grant only kind of like half closes her down. And let me tell you, you can't half close down Tabitha Chewinga. And she's going to score that probably 99 times out of 100, and she just blasted it into the net. PSG takes the lead 2-1 in the 74th minute. It felt pretty bad in the moment, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you close Chewinga all the way down, she still scores.
That's
So
true.
there you go. Tough bounce for Häcken on that cross. Kind of like a weird
Yeah.
outcome, but credit to this PSG side. They kept the pressure on, and Chewinga, she was just not going to be denied today. One really interesting note that I jotted down on the Chewinga goal. Sandy Baltimore, who you mentioned, who's pretty much only gotten better over the course of this tournament, she starts this PSG attack from like 70 plus yards away. She takes a rolled ball from Kietersnik, quick turn, and a super run right into the heart of the Häcken defense that draws the attention of like 5 defenders. By the time Baltimore's done like just creating all the gravity, pretty much everyone is like sort of like closing in on her. She gets it out to Vangsgaard, who's got no one within 15 yards of her. She's like by herself. Her cross, like you mentioned, Mrs. Lika Martins, Ruby Grant, who you also mentioned, kind of stuck in New Woman's land. Let's Chewinga have her way with the ball. But even after the cross comes in, the Häcken defense still sort of on their heels, trying to figure out who's where and what they're going to do. That play, you go back and watch it, it's kind of all Sandy Baltimore in that play. Like, unbelievable creation from her from an offensive standpoint. I thought she had a really good game.
What does that mean for the ITC record book? It sounds like Sandy Baltimore might
Bing.
be angling for an assist here.
No need to angle, man. She's in.
Excellent. I love it.
This sets the stage for a great second leg. PSG, though, didn't quite look like the Ferrari we're used to seeing out there. In your opinion, off day for them, no Katoto? Was it Häcken's defense? Was it Jennifer Falk? What do you think you chalk up this PSG performance to?
Yeah, I think probably a little bit of that. I think, the announcers mentioned freaking cold out there in Gothenburg. Didn't look like anybody was super comfortable. No Katoto is kind of terrifying, I think, for any opponent when you see PSG still come out there against a great defensive side, score 2 goals, and Marie Antoinette Katoto didn't play, so that is a little tricky. I think it just felt like a really professional, smart, hard-fought victory for PSG. I think they should feel great going back to Paris.
Yeah, totally agree. They played really well. To your point, they kind of controlled it. Without Katoto, you got to imagine there's at least a few more chances, and maybe 1 or 2 of those gets converted. But also credit to Häcken. They played their game, and now we've got some drama going back to Paris. These 2 teams close us out next week when they run it back Thursday, March 28th, 4 p.m. Eastern.
I'll just throw it out there before we end the show. Are you telling me, even without no Anna Anvegard for Häcken because of yellow card accumulation, that's tough? Who wants to come in here and tell us there's no way Häcken ends full time at that match in Paris 1-0 and they got to go to extra time to settle it? I think it's on the board.
Definitely on the board. I mean, they've got the defenders to turn it into that kind of game.
Yep.
That's a good question. Who do you think? We're obviously like on high chalk alert, meaning we might get all 4 group winners advance, which would be pretty epic in its own right. But who do you think, outside of Brann, who do you think's got the best chance of pulling the upset and advancing to the semis here?
Vespa, we love you, pal. I think it's Benfica.
I think I agree with that.
Kika, man. Kika hasn't had her moment yet.
Kika magic. We're going to get it. We're going to get some of it.
Yep.
I'm with it. I think I agree with you. I think offensively, we saw what they could do against Barcelona, so they definitely have the firepower. I think it's really going to come down to, can they put together a game plan to maybe kind of conserve a little energy and play a little bit more economical with regard to, like you mentioned, it might go to an extra 30, and then that's a test of stamina at that point. But I think I agree with you. We might get something explosive from Benfica, which would make that tie super, super interesting. With that said, anything else you want to hit before we get out of here?
I think we covered it.
All right, man. I think we did it. It's been another episode of Into the Channel. Remember, subscribe or follow Into the Channel, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to watch or listen at ITC_pod on X. Big thanks to you for watching, listening, subscribing, blowing up our social media as Brann is on the verge of shocking the world. Or even if they don't, we still appreciate you blowing us up anyway. Please keep it coming. You help make us smarter. And as my co-host likes to say, this is a learning podcast. You also make the show better. And for that, I know I'm speaking for both of us. We are immensely, immensely appreciative and thrilled to have each and every one of you hanging out with us. Big thank you to my co-host for being our co-general of this Into the Channel battalion, week in, week out. Mr. Grant Angler, I appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you, buddy. And you know what? Just to every fan base out there whose club we like talking about, we got a lot of offers for free beers, for lodging from the Brann Battalion. Hey, we're open for business now, so you just let us know. I mean, if you want to hang out with two dopey Americans who love women's football, we'll come on down. I mean, all these cities look beautiful, so wherever our globe trotting takes us, we will see you there. We'll be looking forward to the refreshments with you guys. Talk to you soon.